All right. Daryl Huckabee here with a brand new season of the What the Huck podcast. Here we go. There it is. There it is. What the Huck, hope, understanding, community, and knowledge. Of course, my name is Daryl Huckabee. Everybody calls me Huck, though, and I'm excited to have a guest on today that's going to talk about some fantastic things happening in northern New England, or actually in the world of travel. Let's put it that way. Lisa Jones, what's happening?
Hey, Huck. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited about this conversation, especially hearing about where you're from.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely get into that. My roots up in northern New England.
That's
Of course,
right.
currently I'm in Connecticut, but I've been all around the world and then some, so to speak. So let's start with you and your background before we get into Black Travel Maine, which is the baby that you gave birth to last year, or actually earlier this year, and that's going to continue on as a staple up in Maine. What's your background? How did you get into travel?
Well, I would say it all started in Connecticut, actually, where you're at. My first job was with American Airlines. Many years ago, American Airlines had a big office in downtown Hartford, Connecticut. I don't know how many people might remember that, right across from the big department store. And I don't remember the name of the department store, but you might. But I came to Connecticut to work for American Airlines. First, I was trained in Dallas, Texas, and then they said, "Oh, you're going to be living in Hartford, Connecticut." And I was like, "Wow, Connecticut! I didn't even know there were Black people there."
Oh my goodness. Let me pause you right there. Let me pause right there. I don't know where that mindset came from. We talked about this before, but when I went away to college in Pittsburgh and people found out I was from Connecticut, that was one of the main things that people responded. Like, I didn't know there were Black people in Connecticut. I'm like, what world are you living in? Not the world I come from. So here in New Haven, we a lot of Blacks. You got Bridgeport, you got Hartford. I mean, there are Blacks all over Connecticut. So, we're here to help kind of dispel that too. And then also dispel the fact that the same thing applies to Maine, because a lot of people don't think Blacks are in Maine either.
Exactly.
So go ahead. Continue with your...
So that's been my background. So I started. I worked for American Airlines, and I only spent 1 year downtown Hartford. But I had a vision to do more with the knowledge that I had learned from American Airlines. And at that point, I decided to become a travel agent. And I went to work for Liberty Travel back in 1988 when, Blacks were just beginning to travel. I took a job with them, and I was stationed in Wethersfield, Connecticut.
Yep.
So Wethersfield, I worked there as an agent for 7 years. I worked in that store. That's where I learned travel. But at that point, I really didn't have any Black clients. Most of the customers that I dealt with in the Wethersfield office were all Caucasian customers. And I can remember people walking in and asking to speak to Lisa because I just booked a trip with her over the phone and trying to bypass me and me saying, "Hi, I'm Lisa." So, I got a lot of that working in Connecticut. But I did work there in that particular store for 7 years. Then I was promoted to management. And they said to me, "Oh, we're going to send you to the store outside of New Haven in Hamden, Connecticut." And I was like, "Hamden? Never heard of it, didn't know anything about it." And so that was my first management promotion. And that store was there at one point for 25 years, right across from the high school, from Hamden High School.
I remember seeing that long time ago.
Yeah, and
Back
so
in the day. Yeah.
I was a manager there. I worked in that store for about 9 years. on and off. I was there. I was in Greenwich, Connecticut. I opened their flagship store in Greenwich.
Hmm.
I took Hamden, when I took over the Hamden store, I increased sales by 100% the first year I was in there. That the owner came in and he wanted to know, well, how did you increase sales by 100%? And I could remember telling him, by going after the Black customers and treating them well.
Yeah.
The Black clients would come into the Liberty Travel and Hamden store, and they were given like the worst hotels, the motels. No, they never thought we could afford to stay in a Hyatt or a Hilton. And when I became the manager there, I would go into my meetings with the staff and I'd be, look, we're going to treat everybody the same. Any customer, we're not going to assume because they're Black, they don't have any money and they can't afford certain things. We're going to offer them the same you would offer any other customer. So I have to tell you that my career in providing travel services to Black people is something that I've always prided myself in. And I could remember telling them, even when they promoted me to another store, hey, look, you've got to bring another Black travel agent in here before I leave. I need to make sure that the customers are still going to be serviced in the same way once I'm gone.
Right.
So
It's funny, bringing that up, that you tapped into a market that they were ignoring, and that happens. Well, that was happening in a lot of industries, and still to a degree does happen. So, I'm glad you pointed that out. That we have to take care of each other because sometimes the others don't.
no, and and I can remember some stories in Connecticut, even I can remember the man who used to sell me my cars in Windsor, Connecticut. I can still remember this Caucasian gentleman calling me up one day and saying, "Lisa, you're never gonna believe this. I started working at a new car dealership and they won't sell cars to Black people. Can you believe that?" And I'm like, "No way." He's like, I don't understand it. And this is a white man saying this to me. He's like, money is green. They will not sell cars. And then he said, I started to tell them the story about you and how I met you and you bought a used car from me. And now you drive a Lexus. Like, I helped you buy and so, I can't believe even in this day and age, this stuff is still
Still
going
happening.
on, Huck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I ended up in Maine, for the same very reason. Wanting to show and expose a destination that is unknown to people of color. Why don't we know about Maine? Maine is a beautiful destination. And when I stumbled across it, here I was, a Black person in travel for over 20 something years at that point, and I knew nothing about Maine, the state of Maine, whose, by the way, license plate says what? Huck? What does Maine's license plate say?
I don't even know. You got to school me on that.
Vacation land. Vacation land. So
Yeah.
why do you think their license plate says vacation land?
Because it's a land for vacation.
It's
But
beautiful.
a lot of people, unfortunately, when they think vacation, they think tropical beaches, toes in sand type of thing. And Maine has beaches, so in the summertime you could, get some nice Atlantic Ocean waves and sand under your feet. But we don't know what we don't know, and it takes a person like you to expose certain things that are not known to the masses, especially within our culture. So, what is your connection to Maine? How did you connect with Maine to realize that it was an untapped resource for Black?
So, to be quite honest, I had a friend who was recruited to work at a university in Maine. And she took the job in Maine during the pandemic, during COVID.
Mhm.
And I had recently made a huge change in my life. After getting a divorce and living on the North Shore of Long Island for 16 years, I had just relocated to the city. And it was during a time when I was thought I was going to have the best time of my life. And then COVID happened and shut down the city. And everything changed here. And at that point, it wasn't a good place to be. And so she said to me, well, why don't you come visit me in Maine? Here I am in Maine. I'm in lockdown. I have this house by myself. And why don't you and your daughter come up? And I was like, Maine? Why would I want to come to Maine? So, after a little while of thinking, I said, we're going to take that trip. It's time for me. Why don't we go up to Maine and just check this out? And we don't like it, we'll stay a day or two. If we don't like it, we'll come back. Well, here I am, relocated to Maine. Maine is now my second home, which tells you how much we loved Maine.
Yeah.
I was blown away. Number one, by how beautiful it is. You mentioned the beaches. I went in the summer. I could not believe how beautiful the beaches were, how warm the water was. I always heard the water in the north is cold. Like,
Yeah.
the water was not cold at all. The people, me and my daughter would be walking around, or we'd be in the supermarket and people would be waving and saying hello. My daughter was 12 at the time. She'd look at me, Mom, are they talking to us? Like, we're from New York where people
Nobody,
ignored us in
nobody
Long
pays attention to
Island.
anybody.
And so we were just like, and when my daughter looked at me and said, Mom, these people are so friendly. And so that's when I really started to dig, and I wanted to know, well, why don't Black people know about Maine? The food was amazing, the people are amazing, and it's a beautiful destination. How have they kept this a secret? I said, this is another one of those places that they, 'cause if you ask a white person, they know Maine is nice. They all know about Maine, but for some reason, if you ask a person of color, we think it's the whitest state, it's the coldest state.
Yeah. It's
We don't.
perception. It's
Yeah.
the unfair perception of Maine, and unless you go there, you don't know. And not too many people want to venture out. You happen to be in an environment that put you there, or a situation that put you in Maine that exposed you to it. And I'm glad that you took heed and now are doing some things to expose it to the rest of the world. So,
Mhm.
Black Travel Maine.
Absolutely. So, Huck, you need to be the one to really tell us about Maine, because I am like blown away that your family, you're like generations deep into Maine.
Yeah.
You're just not surface Maine. And so for people who think there's no Black people in Maine, you need to share your families. Shared some things with me. Your family's been in Maine since the 1800s.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us.
So we go deep. I'm gonna let you tell your story, but I'll touch upon mine. Yeah, my roots are in Maine. My mother's mother, on my maternal side, you would call it, come from Maine. So my grandmother was born in Cambridge, Mass, and then her mother was born in Portland, Maine, and the roots, just keep extending back. And as a kid, when I was in elementary school and high school, my parents, during the summer, we used to take trips up the New England coast into Massachusetts because we had relatives there, all the way up to Portland, Maine, to visit those relatives. So, I was exposed to Portland and Maine early on. And, we have a family reunion there every summer that we were supposed to go this past summer, but unfortunately weren't able to make it. But yeah, I mean, unbeknownst to a lot of people, there are Blacks up there, and my roots run deep. A lot of history, a lot of Black history in Maine as well, which you're on the verge of exposing through the Black Travel Maine movement and the weekends that you're doing. So let's talk about how that came about. So what was the concept? What
Well, so basically, it
you,
really just started off innocently of us wanting to start this page, sharing the beauty of Maine and the people of Maine to other. I just wanted to share it with other Black people. So I just started a private group on Facebook, and just started taking videos throughout Maine. And as I started to discover how beautiful Maine was, I also started to discover how deep our roots are in Maine. And then I was really sold and blown away when I found out that we have the Freedom Trail, and
yep,
that there's over 200 churches and houses that house the enslaved en route to freedom
yep,
in Canada. Nobody knows that. And a lot of these, and the third oldest meeting house for African Americans in the country
hmm,
is in Portland, Maine.
yep,
So as I started to expose, and as I really started to travel around and really start to see how deep our history is, I was more blown away by the fact that there's a lot of stories that have not been told,
yep,
with regards to Maine
yeah,
and our history. And so I've just been traveling all throughout Maine, trying to expose those stories and let people know how deep our roots are. There are markers in various spots, and I just found one out in Bangor for in an area where there was a home that where the enslaved were kept, and there's a lot of abolitionist places too. I'm sorry, like churches and I mean, there is just so much history in Maine, and I think it's time to start telling those stories. And even in a gun quit. I don't know how much you know about a gun quit, but it's such an artsy area.
Mhm.
But did you know that Langston Hughes used to perform?
I
And
heard that.
yes,
Yeah.
at the a gun quit playhouse. And then he would stay at the Hideaway Inn, which was on the Green Book, which was one of the only places that he could stay, which was black owned, one of the first black owned hotels.
Now
Um,
speak on the Green Book because a lot of people may not know what that is.
so it was the real book that the only places that people of color could stay in
Yeah, and I forget
during.
I forget who published it, but it was well known back then. And
Mhm,
basically, as you said, it was a book of places you could stay and businesses that you can support that were black owned. So if
right,
you travel, and it was a book that covered all different parts of the country. So if you're traveling throughout the country, I know New Haven was on it at one point,
right,
and different areas of the country. So if you were traveling back then, everybody got the Green Book, and then you knew where to go. More importantly, where not to go
exactly.
back in those days. So yeah,
Well, and I feel like Black Travel Maine is almost an extension of that in some ways that we're letting you know where you can go in Maine and where our history is. And one of the things, and I'm glad you brought that up, one of the things I started to discover once I started posting about Maine is how many black people were scared to go to Maine. They're like, it's safe for us, we're welcome. And I'm like, where is that narrative coming from? There's a narrative out there too that Maine isn't safe for us. And I don't know where
it,
that
it,
came from.
it's perception that because the perception is that there's not a lot of blacks in Maine, if any blacks, right?
Hmm.
So we tend not to go where we're not. And then as a culture, we perceive that if there's not a lot of us there, it's probably not safe. And that just runs, deep in our culture from way back in the day, slavery days. So um now I remember seeing the Facebook because I'm big on social media. So before I even met you, I saw the page, the Black Travel Maine page, and I'm like, Black Travel Maine? What? So I get on the phone to my relatives. I'm like, are you, thinking that it was coming from somebody in Maine? Well, you happen to be in Maine, but you weren't from Maine.
Right.
I called my relatives. I asked around, and nobody knew, what it was and who was doing it. And as things progressed, I found out about the weekend that you had last August, the full weekend, and then we connected, and the rest is history. But it's funny that again, you put something out there and people bait it and gravitate to it, and then they learn more about it. And I was intrigued because obviously my roots are from Maine. So I'm like, wait a minute, I got to be a part of this. So
Right.
as the stars aligned and what have it, we connected and here we are. So
And I'm so excited to have you as part of it because, just having someone whose roots and history, is there. I mean, I'm excited to be working with you. So thank you, for and I'm actually glad that you found it. I got to be honest with you. There's a lot of people in Maine that found it the same way.
yeah.
And there's actually someone who sent me a message today, a beautiful message I posted on in the private group today. Someone who's of Indian descent who's been
Hmm.
living in northern Maine, and he says he's never seen anything good on social media except running across this page. You know how many people have said that to me, and how he inspired it has made him, and all the information that I've shared with him. He's from Maine, and the history I'm giving him, he had no
Yeah.
idea. He said, how do I not know this? And I'm from Maine and I live in northern Maine. And you know how many Mainers have said that to me on the page?
Mhm.
That I'm teaching them.
Yeah. And a lot of people, unfortunately, even living there, don't know unless they're connected. And fortunately, I mean, my family is kind of connected, and
Yes,
we'll
they are. Your family are the historians, the
yeah.
leaders in the Black community, and so I am very aware of who your relatives are, and that's why I'm so excited to be having you with us on this Black Travel Maine venture.
Now I was supposed to go over the summer to the first weekend, but as fate would have it, I wasn't able to make it due to other circumstances. But I'm definitely going to be a part of this August. So talk about the weekend this past August and what it entailed.
So basically, I hosted a group of 25 influencers from across the country. I brought Jackie Page. I love Jackie Page from the Atlanta market. She's on air personality in Atlanta. I brought Just Nick from WBLS. We had Coria Burns, the director of digital for Radio One. We had Victoria Flory, Digital One. She's responsible for Madame Nayor, News One.
Small
She
world.
brought,
Corey and I used to work together.
oh, Victoria Flory, you know
No,
Victoria?
no, Korea.
Oh, okay. Oh, Coria Burns.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Radio One in my radio life down in DC.
Oh, yeah. Coria is
Yeah.
great people. Love her. Good people.
Small world. It's a small world.
Yeah, and let me see who else. Oh, we had Corin Vaughn, who's senior vice president of experiential for Citigroup. We had, as I said, Madame Nayor was there, News One. Tiffany Smith from Madame Nayor. We had Jerry Barrow, who now is head of digital. I just saw he's working for Hot 97 now.
Okay.
He's head of digital for Hot 97. So we had I had Miss Jones from 94.7 The Block, and then she has her new song, Calling All Ladies. We had her in Maine with us. So we had a nice group of influencers, and we showed them Maine. We traveled throughout Portland. We went to LL Bean hosted us, which was amazing. We did farm to table dining. We went to a farm, and then we had the farm to table meal from the oyster farm and the lobster farm. It was just an amazing experience. We had live jazz. We had the legendary Chris Washington was the DJ. We had a lobster and seafood brunch that he DJ'd, but we really just showed people of color, these influencers, the history of Maine and all that Maine has to offer for people of color. So let me tell you, the very first thing we did was walk the Freedom Trail.
Yeah.
And then we were hosted then we went into the Abyssinian Meeting House. And then Colby College hosted us with a historian who gave us some of the history on Maine. And then, as you know, Colby has an amazing museum with African American art, tons of African American and African art. We did an art exhibit there, and then we had live jazz. And so it's all about arts, jazz, culture, fellowship, food. That's what our tours are going to be about. And
speaking of food, because Maine, a lot of people don't know, if you're a foodie, you definitely will enjoy Portland, Maine, because the food scene there, outside of, and everybody knows Maine for lobsters, but even outside of lobsters, obviously the seafood is good. But it is a foodie situation up there.
Yes, it is. And that's what a lot of people don't know. The food situation in Maine is, listen, if you see most Mainers, you'll see most of them have a few extra pounds on them. There's a reason for that.
Did you hear about this? A sandwich, I believe it's called the Italian.
Oh,
that's really popular up there. And my relatives talk about it all the time. And I think I may have had one as a kid. I just don't remember, but that's another, from a food standpoint, a popular item.
Yeah, and the whoopie pie, they're known for that whoopie pie, that chocolate sponge cake everywhere. But no, Maine, as far as the food, that's the one thing that I've been trying to tell the food in Maine is amazing, even from the taste of the meats. I don't know if it's because we're so close to the farms, but the quality and the taste of the food just tastes so much better when you're in Maine. I had definitely had gained quite a few pounds my first year there, and I had to learn how to. But not only that, they're known for their string beans. Oh my God, the fresh string beans, the blueberries.
Yeah.
There's certain things about Maine that the potatoes. So I can tell you, Maine is definitely a food destination as well. Some of the best restaurants, as you said, in Portland. Some of the best seafood, from steaks. It's not just seafood; it's everything.
Yeah. Yep. So, what's the plan for August 2024?
So August 2024 is our Welcome to Maine tour, where we're trying to make it be a combination of things this year. That way, the people who don't want to do a bus tour can also just do Portland and the
They have
beaches
options. Yeah.
and hop around the way they want. So there'll be various options this year. Those that want to do the bus tour, which I think is the best way to see Maine, because everything is an hour away. Just so you know, if you try to drive it on your own, it's everything is an hour. Am I right, Huck? I don't know how much you travel. I always say to go anywhere in Maine takes an hour.
Yep.
um,
Everything's
so
in close proximity, not far.
so all of our tours start in Portland, which is nice.
Yep.
So if you don't have a car, you just have to get to Portland, and then all your transportation is included from Portland on. Portland's a great city. Tell them about how diverse Portland is. I don't know when's the last time you've been, but Portland has a huge African population now, guys. It's
Yeah.
not what you think. I look around Portland now a lot of days, and I think Portland is looking, I don't know. The percentage has got to be pretty high in Portland as far as diversity now. I would say at least 30 or 40%.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty high as far as diversity is concerned.
Well, we want to expose that to everybody. You have a Facebook page, correct, for Black Travel Maine?
Yeah.
And people can look for the page, and then is there a website or
Yep, blacktravelmaine.com. And then we're having a ski weekend. That's coming up, Martin Luther King weekend. So if anybody's looking for it, it's going to be a small group of us. We're going skiing, we're going ice fishing, live jazz, just some good fellowship, and some fun. Actually, we're taking over a mansion in Portland, which is what makes it even more fun.
Wait, what? A mansion?
We're taking over a mansion.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a mansion takeover.
Okay.
We're gonna have the whole mansion to ourselves, and that's what's gonna make it nice. We're gonna have the live music going and food and drinks, and it's gonna be a nice time. So we're not only gonna ski, we're gonna have fun. We're going skiing at Sugarloaf all day on Sunday. Saturday we start with those that are going to go ice fishing, but we're also going to be doing the Freedom Trail and the Abyssinia Meeting House, and then we're going to be Indigo Arts, which is an arts alliance in Portland. They always have African artists in residence. So people get a chance to see that as well. But we're going to go skiing, snowboarding, and we're going to have a live event on the mountain that day. We're going to have a private room with music and everything at the mountain. So if people just want to show up at the mountain, also, we have our own lift ticket and our own party going on. Okay. So I hope you'll join us.
I'm looking forward to it. Now, I'm not a big skier. I've always been afraid of my knees and my legs and everything else. And actually, one time years ago, I had planned a ski trip. I was stepping outside of my comfort zone and was going to do it. And that fall, I tore my ACL, so it never happened. So, but when I go, I won't be on the slopes. I'll be watching.
Well, that's the thing. That's why we're gonna have the party room, because we recognize that a lot of us just want to get dressed in the pretty outfits. And
yeah, I mean, ski trips are even big if you don't ski.
It is
just for the environment and the social aspect of it. So.
Yeah. And that's why I have the whole other party thing going on at the mountain too. So the people who aren't gonna, because I'm not a huge skier, I'll ski a little bit, but after a couple falls, I'm good.
So more information on that, blacktravelmaine.com.
Blacktravelmaine.com, but really Instagram. If you go to our Instagram page, and the link in the bio will take you right to the ski trip website. It has its own landing page. Like I said, we're taking over a mansion, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right, we're about to put Maine on the map.
Yeah, yes, we are.
And then after the ski trip, I'm sure there's going to be some lead-up events to the August event. So
yeah, so we're building a movement in Maine, and so I'm looking to gather us, just as we do Martha's Vineyard. I'm looking to gather us a couple times a year in Maine, and let this be the beginning of that.
Yeah.
As you know, Martha's Vineyard's overcrowded in August. And so anyone looking for something different and, want some more culture and arts, and, we're building a little movement over here in Maine in August. So
not a little movement. We're building big.
That's right.
We're going to make it big. We're going to make it a summer destination spot.
That's
right. A winter wonderland destination spot for skiers or those that just like the ski environment. So
That's
I'm
right.
excited. I'm truly excited. Like, again, when I first saw the page, I'm like, Black Travel Maine. That's interesting. And as we fast forward to where we are today, finding out about you and then the connection, and we know some of the same people. You lived in New Haven for a while. The stars are definitely aligned. So I'm excited about this Black Travel Maine movement, and kudos to you for having the foresight to put it together. I know you're a travel aficionado, so that's right up your alley and putting packages together. Oh, and by the way, another thing you do is the fit trips. You've been doing Jamaica fit trips for a number of years now, and next
Yeah,
year you're venturing your eighth one.
this was our 8th year consecutively. We took I take 60 to 75 people. It's been our max away for mind, body, and soul weekend to Jamaica. And back when I started Jamaica Fit Trip, they told me Black people would not go away to work out, Huck. So I'm always trying to change the narrative.
There it is.
They told me that we would never spend money on fitness and working out. And guess what? Here I am 8 years later, still bringing a
We're
group.
doing it. And next year you're changing the destination, right?
So we're taking year 9 off, and year 10 will be in St. Lucia. We're changing the landscape to St. Lucia Fit Trip. So, visit JamaicaFitTrip.com for more information. But it's St. Lucia Fit Trip, formally the Jamaica Fit Trip, and it's a mind, body, and soul. We have comedy. We bring a celebrity DJ. We basically show you how fitness is fun. And that's what I did. I said, you know what? Black people will go if they know it's fun. If they know it's fun and that they're going to have a good time, that's really, and you're getting healthy at the same time.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
Mental health and physical health. That's big these days. So you got to take care of yourself, mind, body, and soul. So I'm sure I've been seeing the pictures for that for a long time. And like way before Black Travel Maine came about, I'm like, Jamaica Fit Trip, because some of the people I know here in Connecticut have been going with you. So I was pretty intrigued by that. But here's the thing, you said people said, nobody would do it. They say it's always impossible until it's done. All right. So nothing is impossible unless you refuse to at least step out of your comfort zone and try to do it, or not try to do it, but just make it happen. It's just a matter of, putting your mind to it and making it happen. So kudos to you on making that happen, making Black Travel Maine happen, and now making the ski weekend happen up in Portland. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll definitely be there in August. I'm making arrangements to be there next month for MLK weekend as well.
Yay! I'm excited. Because I think having you there is going to be making it even special, Huck, because of your background. I really appreciate that. I think that's going to add something even more special to it.
And I've been talking to my relatives up there about this whole movement, so they're definitely on board to get involved and share some of the background and the points that you may not be aware of yet about Black Portland and Black Maine. So
I can't wait. I can't wait for us to have that dialogue. So
educational experience. Let's spread the wealth.
That's right.
You don't know what you don't know. We're about to share what a lot of people don't know about Maine.
And there's so much, and we got to do a better job of keeping our own history alive. And I really think that, and I appreciate you and respect you for wanting to get those stories out, because this is the kind of stuff we have to do on our own. Nobody's going to do it.
Especially now, because the forces are trying to subdue that information and that history. So we got to work extra hard to keep it alive and make sure more people know about it. So again, kudos to you for creating and curating this movement. So thank you for joining me. You're the first guest on the new season of What the Huck podcast. I'm excited.
Good. Well, thank you for having me. This was great. Anytime, Huck. So just let me know. I appreciate everything you've done, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Yeah, and we'll have you back a few more times as we go into the August event as well. So
great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
The What the Huck podcast.